You are listening to 600 Second Saga. Today's feature is Earth Children Are From Venus, Treborians Are From Mars by Sharolyn G Brown. The feeling of floating in the void quickly subsided as Roxel completed the link to her Earth connection, Lauren. She opened her eyes to see the dreamscape had taken the form of a wilderness of some sort. All around her were thick, leafy trees and wild plants containing colorful flowers. Settings like these were her favorite for meeting with Lauren. She walked close to the flowers, touching and smelling them, all the while wishing she could do this in her waking life. Because of an ecological disaster that had taken place on Trebor many generations ago, she could not. The only examples of wilderness she experienced were mere illusions Lauren's subconscious mind fashioned when Roxel connected with her. "You're silly, Roxy. Of course you can have some tea, but you have to share with everyone." The voice of a child traveled through the trees. It was Lauren, and hearing her brought Roxel back to the reality of what she was here to do. She sighed. Working with the child version of Lauren is so difficult. Taking a deep breath, she stepped onto the path and followed it toward the voice. As she walked, she inhaled deeply, savoring Lauren's memories of the smell of the foliage. The setting began to change slightly. The grass and dirt-covered ground changed to a grainier consistency. Roxel recognized what Lauren was dreaming about. When Lauren was a child, her family had traveled to the beach. The child had loved it, because for several lunar cycles after, that trip to the beach was the only thing Lauren would dream about, and Roxel had been unable to get her to do any work in the dreamscape as a result. Still, even though she knew it would make her job harder, part of Roxel wished she could enjoy something like this beach in her waking world. Further, there was a person in her waking world that she wanted to enjoy it with. "Stop thinking about him," she chastised herself. "Thoughts of Ito are only going to distract you, and you cannot afford any distractions." Her self-reprimand was cut short as she stepped out of the tree line and spotted the young Earth girl on her knees, surrounded by small mounds of sand and playing with small replicas of humans spread in front of her. Roxel knew the replicas were called dolls. They were just one example of something called toys, with which Lauren had taught her all Earth children played. Toys and playing were two of the many alien things about Earth Roxel had learned over the 25 annums she had been traveling into Lauren's dreams. Toys were a regular sight when Lauren's dream form was a child. "Yes, this tea is yummy, but too many cakes and we'll have tummy aches, Roxy." Lauren pointed her finger at the doll she had named after Roxel. "Hello, Lauren." Roxel had to announce her presence since the child's back was toward her. "Roxel!" Lauren jumped up from the ground, ran to her, and hugged her. With the exception of her clothing, Lauren looked like she could be a child from Roxel's planet, Trebor. But other than their similar physiology, there were no other similarities between their lives. Lauren appeared to live a life where she could choose to live however she wanted. Roxel's life was governed by her gods, the Keepers, and their chosen rulers, the Keepers' representatives. It did not matter that Roxel knew the Keepers were not real gods. Pretending she believed they were real was the only way to keep herself safe. "I must clear my mind of these distractions and get to work," she thought. "Hello, Lauren. How are you?" These pleasantries were a learned interaction. "I'm fine. Do you want to play dolls with me?" The child ran back to the dolls, kicking up sand as she did. Roxel shielded her eyes. "No, Lauren. I would rather play our special game where we build a microprocessor. Would you like to play that game?" Lauren came to a stop in front of her with a doll in her hand, then lowered her head. "But all you ever want to do is play that stupid microprocessor game. Can't we play dolls just this once? My daddy got me this one today." The child held up the toy for Roxel's inspection. Over the years, there had been many times when Roxel had played the games Lauren wanted because she would not cooperate otherwise. However, this night, Roxel really needed her to work. Getting Lauren to build a microprocessor on Earth was Roxel's reason for being. The reps preached that it was her holy calling, assigned by the keepers themselves. If she could not accomplish the task, the best she could wish for would be a demotion from her caste, the Traveler's caste, to one of the lower ones. The worst case would be that the reps would execute her as an example of the price of failure. "Lauren, I will compromise with you. Let's work on building the microprocessor first, and then we will play with your dolls later." This deal had worked sometimes in the past, and Roxel hoped it would work now. As she waited for Lauren to decide if she would go along, Roxel made sure to keep a slight smile on her face. This appeared to work best when dealing with the child version of Lauren. The lack of immediate obedience of Earth Children had been a difficult adjustment for Roxel, even though she was a child herself when they first began connecting. "Okay, I'll play your stupid microprocessor game," Lauren said as she threw her doll to the ground. The pout on the child's face reminded Roxel of more difficult and unproductive work sessions from the past. "Thank you. First, I need to see the most recent version of the chip. Do you have a recent version stored somewhere nearby?" Roxel tried to sound positive and cheerful. Getting angry with the child would accomplish nothing. "Yeah, I have it." Lauren looked down at the ground as she spoke. "Could you go get it so we can look at it?" Roxel waited. Slowly, Lauren walked around her and onto the path Roxel had followed out of the trees. As she followed, the wooded area changed into a hallway similar to the compound where Roxel lived in her waking world. Lauren kept walking, never stopping to consider the change from the woods to a building in a matter of 15 steps. They came to a room which looked exactly like a workroom in Roxel's compound. After they entered, Roxel stood on one side of a work table while the child retrieved the dream representation of the chip. Here it is. The person walking toward the work table with the chip was no longer the child, but instead an older version of Lauren, much closer to Lauren's actual age in her waking life. She is older. Good. Maybe we can get some work done tonight, Roxel thought. Okay, show me what you have so far, Roxel requested, making sure to keep the slight smile on her face. This was Earth Children Are From Venus and Treborians Are From Mars by Sharolyn G Brown. More work can be found at SharolynGBrown.com. Check our show notes for links. Sharolyn was almost 30 years old before she realized what she wanted to do when she grew up. Write. A lifelong science fiction and fantasy fan, it took some time before she realized that other people may also be entertained by all of the characters in her head. So she gave them stories and started putting them in books. Her first novel, The Heaviness of Knowing, is currently available on Amazon. Music is provided by Mads. Learn more about 600 Second Saga, our authors, how to submit your flash fiction, and how to support the podcast in the show notes. This has been Mariah Avix and 600 Second Saga.